everybody, it's Chris from Guilty Words, where we unravel crime one word at a time. Chad Daybell needs to be quiet. Unfortunately, he won't be. Just like his wife Lori, they have that much in common. He started publishing letters on a website assisted by his daughter Emma. And if he's going to put this stuff out there, then we're going to push back. Because what he claims he's doing and what the words reveal he's really trying to do are two very different things. Let's take a look at letter number 1 together, in which he tries to convince us he's just Mr. Nice Guy. Chad is currently posting letters from death row online, and as of this recording, there are 7 letters. But my first question was why? Like I've said in other videos, you always want to look at purpose and audience when you're looking at a piece of writing. So why now? And I wonder if some of it has to do with the fact that Lori has recently gotten so much attention with 2 additional trials and interviews and sort of putting her side of it out there. And maybe he feels sad and neglected because he's not in the headlines anymore. I even wondered if this was a secret message to Lori somehow. And I've looked at the letters for like hidden codes and things and haven't found any, but he's still maybe trying to let her know what he intends to say about this. He claims he's telling his side of the story for his family and friends. He says that's his purpose and his audience, but when we look at this, that's not either his purpose or his audience. Not completely, anyway. And his side is filled with lies, misdirection, and in some of the letters, complete nonsense. We're going to look at his manipulations because he's trying to manipulate us. He's trying to make us believe his side. Self-aggrandizement has always been part of his thing, and it still is. As he said, he hasn't changed. We'll look at the analysis of the words itself, some statistics to do with that, the words he chooses. He uses a lot of minimizing language and a few interesting places where he uses some direct speech, and the subjects of each letter. I'll have sort of a title for each letter, and this one is Mr. Nice Guy. They're on a website called Letters from Chad, and it says it's dedicated to letters to friends and family posted on behalf of Chad Daybell. Let's start right there. To friends and family. Why does he need a website for those letters? If it's that important that he get something out to friends and family, and he's giving this to Emma anyway, why can't she just email it to everybody? Have a nice mailing list. Why do we need a website where everybody who's not friends or family can see it? It makes me question, is this really for friends and family? No financial compensation from the letters on this website or on the social media platforms they are posted on. No, he doesn't. Partly because that's illegal. But Emma does. And what's interesting is there's a second section to all the letters that has books he recommends and music. And there are some Amazon affiliate links there where Emma may collect a few pennies if someone buys through the link. And when the website was first put up, those links weren't listed as a paid link, so I was curious. And then when I went and checked the website later, they had added that it was a paid link, which you're required to do when it's an affiliate link. So there is a little bit of money going on, and if there are ever any advertisers on this website, then Emma would get that money as well, whether she funnels it to Chad or not. Interesting, though, I don't know who would pay to put their ads on this website. Chad Daybell is currently incarcerated, but is able to write these letters through a process that enables them to be posted. What does that mean? Through a process that enables them to be posted? Well, obviously, because they're posted. Does he give them to his daughter? Do they get checked by the police before they go out? Do they go through his lawyers? Why even put that sentence there if you're not going to explain the process? We figured they went through some kind of process because we're here. So let's just start with some basics. In this Mr. Nice Guy letter, there are 46 total sentences. 24 of them begin with I. 20 sentences addressed or discussed relatives, friends, visitors, inspiring people. And 1 sentence mentions Tammy, Tylee, and JJ all together in the same sentence. Definitely some avoidance about where he is and what he's there for. Now, when the first letters were published, I debated whether or not I even wanted to review them, despite the fact it would be perfect for guilty words. And that was because it was Chad, and why give him more of an audience? However, the first 3 words of his first letter convinced me we needed to talk about these. What were they? His greeting, "Hello, my friends." This made me so angry. This is a pastoral greeting. This is something you might hear in church. "Hello, my friends. Hello, my brothers and sisters in Christ," or whatever other greeting might suffice. It implies that he's addressing a very large group of interested people. I don't know how many friends he has at this point, but I gotta say, acting like you're standing up on a pulpit is not a good look, because we know where you really are. Hello, my friends. This is Chad Daybell writing to you from my cell in Idaho's maximum security institution. This is the first of several letters I will send. I want to thank everyone who sent me cards and letters while I have been incarcerated. Your kind words of support really helped me, and I cherished each one. Okay. Well, are his friends so numerous? Are they all supportive? Was every letter he got incredible support for Chad? The poor, poor Chad? Really? If he only got supportive letters, I volunteer to write him one that may not be as supportive. And of course, he's cherished each one. Yes, because he's the type of guy that is always thankful and cherishing. I arrived here at the prison in June 2024, and I suppose you could say that I've settled in. As for death row itself, I won't be sharing details about my daily schedule or information about my fellow inmates. As the newest arrival on death row, it isn't my place to talk about such things. It really is a different world in here, but I'm surviving, and I spend a lot of time working on my upcoming appeals. This, I suppose you could say I've settled in, is some very convoluted wording that has an overtone of victimhood to it. I suppose you could say I've settled in instead of, I arrived here and I've settled in. I suppose you could say I have. It's been difficult. It's been tough, but you could say I've settled in. Poor me. It has that underlying feel to it. And as for death row itself, he isn't sharing details about his daily schedule or information about the inmates. Well, information about the inmates I totally get. It's probably not safe, maybe not even legal to share that. Why not share about his daily schedule? Actually, I would be more interested in that, the daily schedule on death row, than I am in most of the blather he talks about in the next 7 letters. But he says it's because he's the newest arrival on death row. It isn't my place to talk about such things. A little touch of humility there, like, oh, I couldn't. I'm the new kid on the block. What does that have to do with talking about your daily schedule? When you've been there a while, can you talk about your daily schedule? When you're not the newest person on death row, can you start sharing about your fellow inmates? I don't see the connection between the two. But he wants that little bit of victimhood and that little bit of humility to start setting the tone for the Mr. Nice Guy rest of the letter. It really is a different world in here, but I'm surviving. Not thriving, but surviving. And I spent a lot of time working on my upcoming appeals. Well, we're so glad he has something to do. I thought appeals were mostly done by the appellate lawyer because they had to do with technicalities, but whatever, I'm glad he's working on them. I find it interesting that he makes it plural, upcoming appeals, plural. Technically, he has one appeal, and then depending what happens with that, he has another one or not. But he apparently is figuring he's going to have a lot of appeals. Chad begins to establish a strong attitude of gratitude, if you will, sprinkled with some more victimhood. I express my gratitude to each of you who have been part of my life, whether you want to hear it or not. While I was in the Fremont County Jail, I spent thousands of hours in an isolation cell. I wasn't allowed to have a clock, and it often felt like time stood still. Well, he had a pen and paper, because he'll talk about that in a minute. An isolation cell, he probably was in a cell by himself for 4 years. And in part, that may have been for his own safety, since accused child killers are not generally really popular in jail. But what we get is a picture of sad and lonely Chad, hours just with nothing, not even a clock to keep him company. During those challenging days, I would reflect on my life, working forward from childhood to more recent years. As memories came to me, I would write down the names of the people who had been positive influences in my life. I felt strengthened as I remembered my extended family members, neighbors, co-workers, school classmates, business associates, church members, and friends I have been privileged to know. You have all enriched my life in so many ways. The implication is that they're all still enriching his life and they all want to hear this from him, or he has the arrogance to think they all want to be thanked for being part of his life when really they may be trying to distance themselves from him as far as possible. But notice, this is Chad being strong through challenging days. But he's not saying what has led to these challenging days. He's just thinking back on nice people he's met during his life. Not his behavior, and maybe what was wrong with it. Let's talk for a minute about the overall language of gratitude in this letter. If there is a theme, that would be it. He wants to thank everyone. Your kind words of support really helped. I express my gratitude to each of you. You have all enriched my life. Later he says he hopes to generate feelings of healing, reconciliation, and understanding. And thanks us again, my friends. Why all this mushy gratitude? This gratitude serves a number of purposes for Chad. First, it deflects attention. He turns the focus outward and maintains this cheery tone. Instead of focusing on why he's on death row, he focuses on the positives, including all his supposed support. There's almost this sort of, if you're not supporting me, you're an outsider. Come on, get in with everybody else, follow the crowd and support me. Really? Do you think we're going to believe that? And again, he references his support. Everybody's adoring him. Visitors all love him and believe in his innocence. Okay, they're not posting websites and really coming out and publicly saying what an amazing guy you are and how unjust this is. And gratitude makes him appear humble. The focus on other people is to make him seem humble and loving. What a great guy. He's focused on caring about those around him and acknowledging all the help they've given him. He doesn't just think about himself. Chad now goes into a classic smoke and mirrors technique. I'll even call it Chad's justice scale. He's convinced us that he's humble, he's surviving, he's grateful to all of us. We're all on his side, or should be if we're not. And now he's going to try and convince us that he is so nice, he could never have done the things that he is accused of. He could never be the person that we apparently think he is. And so he says, I am using this method to share my story because I want you to receive it uncensored and unfiltered, directly from me. I am aware of how I have been portrayed in the media. Frankly, those portrayals of me are unrecognizable. I am not the man the media has created. I am not a cult member who should be feared. I am not a conspirator or a killer. I never have been. I am a father, a grandfather, a husband, a son, a brother, and a friend with a firm faith in the gospel of Jesus Christ. He wants us to receive this information uncensored and unfiltered. Well, this information is both centered and filtered. It's Chad who's doing the censoring and filtering. What's censored is any detailed discussion of the crimes and everything leading up to the crimes and all the proof in the case. And what's filtered is direct language and answering all the questions that we want answered. He says the portrayals of him are unrecognizable. Not to those of us that saw the evidence. He is not the man the media has created. Let's talk about this word salad he has going on. Chad describes himself in this letter using a lot of very positive attributes. Let's take a look at some of them, because his implication is because he is all these things, he cannot be what he is convicted of being. Chad, according to Chad, is gentle. He's grateful. He's a son. He's a father. He's a friend. He's a brother. He's quiet. He's a peacemaker. He's a grandfather. And he's a man of faith. I'm all this. Okay, so maybe you are a father, a son, a friend, a grandfather, maybe even a man of faith, maybe sometimes a peacemaker. But so what? You are also a convicted murderer on death row. Let's answer Chad's little word salad there with our own. He may be all those things, but he is also a liar, an adulterer, a manipulator, a predator, a cultist, a deceiver, a charlatan, a hypocrite, a convict, and a murderer. I have recently been able to have a few in-person visits with several of my family members, and those have been wonderful. I will always be grateful for the unconditional love and support these family members have given me. When people find out that my relatives have visited me, they usually ask them, "How has he changed?" The unconditional love and support these family members have given me. Interestingly enough, he doesn't mention which family members. He goes on to say, "My relatives give the same response. He hasn't changed. He's the same Chad we always knew." People are surprised by that answer after hearing a different story for so long. I am still the quiet, gentle person you all know. I have always been a peacemaker, even now in prison. I have never caused anyone's death and have never conspired to commit such acts against anyone. I share in your sadness, pain, and grief over the deaths of Tammy, Tylee, and JJ. I don't have all the answers even now, but I'm grateful a more complete story will be shared during my appeals process. He hasn't changed. He's the same Chad we always knew. That's a problem, because the same Chad you always knew is sitting on death row as a convicted murderer. That's the Chad you always knew. He needs to change. That's the problem. And to say he shares in your sadness, pain, and grief over the deaths of Tammy, Tylee, and JJ. He shares in it? The only mention of the victims in this letter, and they're not mentioned much in any of the subsequent letters so far, and he shares in our sadness. During my court trial, I followed my attorney's advice to sit quietly, not smile, and not show any emotion as evidence was presented. I know that this is standard protocol for defendants in the courtroom, but I realize now that it made me appear to be cold and uncaring, which is the opposite of who I am. I assure you my heart was breaking many times throughout the trial, and there were moments when I couldn't hold back the tears, especially as I saw and heard family members suffering the same feelings of anguish that I was experiencing. I don't remember Chad crying during his trial at all, but let me know in the comments below if you do. Or if he did any of the give me a tissue but I have no tears like Donna Adelson. The amount of arrogance that it takes to say that he is suffering the same anguish as everyone else is mind-boggling to me, given that it's been proven he was a vital part of causing this anguish. We always hear people show grief in different ways. You shouldn't judge by their reaction to things, but I'm sorry. This was his version of grieving at the time. Hanging out with Lori in Hawaii while the bodies of those children were rotting on his farm. I'm not seeing a whole lot of grief and anguish here at the time. If he has any grief and anguish during the trial, it's probably because he's on trial. Chad is a master minimizer, if you will, and his language practices a lot of distancing and minimizing. For example, I have never caused anyone's death. I have never conspired to commit such acts. And my demeanor made me appear to be cold and uncaring. If he never caused anyone's death, did he have someone else cause it, like Alex? What acts is he talking about he's never conspired to commit? Such acts. Spell it out, Chad. What exactly didn't you conspire to do? And my demeanor made me appear to be cold and uncaring. Actually, no. What made you appear cold and uncaring was the fact that Tammy, Tylee, and JJ are dead in part because of some of your actions. That's what made you cold and uncaring. Now, Chad is capable of direct speech. This sort of vague talk around things is not just a stylistic choice for him. He does use direct language when it comes to denials. I am not a cult member. I am not a conspirator. I am not a killer. No beating around the bush there. And he also claims to not be the man the media has created. The media did not create that man. It may have made that man famous or beyond the constraints of the courtroom, but the investigation revealed what he was long before social media came on board. So in amidst all this humble gratitude, what else is Chad feeling? He doesn't talk about his feelings easily or believably. I assure you my heart was breaking. It's odd to assure us his heart was breaking. Why not just say, my heart was breaking or my heart broke? I assure you. The focus is on making sure we know that his heart was breaking. I appeared cold and uncaring, which is the opposite of who I am. It shouldn't be necessary for him to tell us he's cold and uncaring, any more than it should be necessary to assure us his heart was breaking. If the evidence hadn't proved that he was cold and uncaring, we wouldn't believe it. And family members suffered the same feelings of anguish that I was experiencing. Oh, wow. It's the second time in the letter that Chad insists that he feels the same grief as everyone else. And it comes off as a desperate attempt to clean up his image. That's what this whole thing is a PR exercise. And Chad winds up the body of the letter with this. A key purpose of these letters is to share with you what I had hoped would have been explained in court. I will strive to make each letter informative and worth your time. I fully realize many people will never change their negative opinion of me. In this age of social media, podcasts, and the merging of the mainstream media with law enforcement, very few defendants are portrayed in a positive way. All I can hope for is that these letters can begin to generate feelings of healing, reconciliation, and understanding. Thanks again, my friends, for the many ways you have helped and inspired me throughout my life. Chad, if you wanted something explained in court, why didn't you get up and explain it yourself? You had the option to testify. Why didn't you have your lawyer explain it? What could you possibly have explained in court that would explain away all that evidence? And not only that, you say that these letters are going to be informative and worth your time, or worth our time, excuse me. But you've also said that the truth will come out during your appeals. So what this is coming down to is he's going to tease us along, hoping that he'll eventually talk about what we all want to hear about, the murders, which are unrelated to his childhood and all the rest of his nonsense. But like Lori, he will say, I can't get into details because of the appeals. That's what's coming. But in the meantime, he gets his narcissistic feed from this. And as for these letters beginning to generate feelings of healing, reconciliation, and understanding, for whom? For you, Chad? Is writing this cathartic for you? Are you healing, reconciling with people, or increasing your own understanding? I don't see a whole lot of self-awareness here when you haven't changed at all. Is it supposed to help the other victims, the living victims, heal? How is hearing from you going to do that? You think you have the power and influence to help people heal from loss that you inflicted? Reconciliation. Who are people supposed to reconcile with? You? You want people to welcome you back into the fold? And understanding? What are we supposed to understand? Supposedly that you are not a killer or a conspirator or a cult member leader. But we don't understand that because you have to answer the evidence, and you're not going to do that. So really, your purpose is not to help people heal, to reconcile with people, or to increase understanding. Your purpose is to try and change your reputation and your legacy, and to get some attention. That's it. And really, you're not addressing this to your friends, because you could do that privately and they probably would prefer that you did. You are trying to change the minds of those of us that you say will never change their negative opinion of you. Until you can explain away all that evidence, no, people will not. His motivations, well, a key purpose is to share with you what I hoped would have been explained in court. Yeah, okay, but you're not doing that. Why are the victims only mentioned in one single sentence? They were a major part of court. Why do you start over half your sentences with I? Why does this read like a poorly written PR missive? And then why do you say it's really going to be explained in appeals, not in your letters? So in Chad's efforts to prove to us that he is not the terrible, horrible, awful man he's been portrayed to be, all he's done is cement what we already know about him. He's a narcissist, he's unrepentant, he believes that he is popular and influential. He even goes further on in the letter to recommend books and music. Did anybody ask for this? Chad just can't keep quiet, and I think he really wants to compete with his wife, who also was never mentioned anywhere in this letter. Thank you for spending time with me today. I really appreciate it. And you know the drill for YouTube. If you like this, please share, like, subscribe. We'd love to have you back for another video. And comment below, what do you think of these letters? And what do you think is Chad's real motivation in sharing them? And where do you think he's going to go with them? And in the meantime, until I talk with you in the comments, or until I see you in the next video, please use your words wisely and well. Take care.